Pat, man, it's good to see you, man.
Good to
I'm
see you too,
excited
Chris.
to have you on the podcast today. How are
This
you?
out of all the little podcasts I do to promote this book, this was the one I was most excited about when I saw Books for Guys.
That's
Man,
right.
I
That's
wrote a
right.
I wrote a man's book here.
That's
So
right. You did. You did. And we were already kind of chatting before I pushed record, but I can quickly tell you and I could talk to you for hours.
exactly. What do we got? We got 3 days for this podcast. What is it?
Yeah.
We
Just
we go marathon.
all the sports that you covered, all the writings and stories that you did. I was telling you, I was the weird kid that used to record Monday Night Football when I was in elementary because I had a bedtime. Tuesday after school, I'd hurry home and finish the game and see who won. And I used to get the sports section every morning and read it, but I would skip it on Tuesday until I watched the game so that I wouldn't ruin the score for me at the end.
That's the horrible thing about growing up in the Midwest and on the East Coast is like back in the day, the game came on at what 8 o'clock, 8:30, and by the time it ended, it was close to midnight.
Yeah. What
So
was it? I think it was Miami Jets game in 2000 something that
yeah,
went. Yeah. I remember waking up and I was like, it went how late?
I covered a game one time with when Joe Montana was playing for the Chiefs, and they played in Denver, and he threw this great last second touchdown to win like 30 31-30, something crazy like that. And I had 10 minutes to write a story. It was the worst thing, deadline.
Yeah.
This is pre-internet everything. It was the worst. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I guess now you can do everything digitally and probably a lot quicker than what it
y-
used to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different world though. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah, and I
nearly as
used to
fun.
I always tell people, so you're in California now.
Hmm.
You were born there, right?
Right.
And then spent a lot of your career though in the
My
Midwest.
Yeah, virtually my entire career in the Midwest. I started off in California, did, like everybody, you start off right in high school sports, which I love high school sports. And then started doing some I guess it was the Pac-10 back then, Stanford, Cal. Started doing a lot of stuff in Northern California and then got an opportunity to go to Kansas City and cover the Chiefs, and there I was.
Man. Well, Pat, kind of kick it off there. So your book, obviously, Dogs Chase Cars, and you kind of lead into why you wrote the book because it's kind of a story of what's transpired over the last, 10
Yeah.
years or this industry. But give us a story of your start and kind of what it led you to.
Well, I grew up realizing that there probably wasn't a pro career for a kid who was not 5 foot yet as a freshman in high school. So I was a little too small to play point guard for the Warriors, a little too slow to play wide receiver for the Niners, and I couldn't hit a curveball, so playing third base for the Giants was not going to happen. But there was a show on TV when I was probably 10 or 11 years old called The Odd Couple with Jack Klugman and Tony Randall. And Jack Klugman played a guy named Oscar Madison, who was a sports columnist in New York City. And he had the coolest job where he went to the ballpark every day. And I said, man, that's what I want to do. And I knew at the age of 11, that's what I wanted to do. I used to get chills every time driving past a ballpark and see it there, and you just go, wow, these were our museums when we were kids. These are the places. They were so sacred because our heroes played there.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden the idea to be able to go there every day and write stories and talk to these people and see games and just do the things I loved, it was just, I couldn't ask for anything more. And
Yeah.
somehow I got to do it.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. What was your favorite sport to cover?
Football was the one that I did the most of. And but it was not necessarily. Football is so regimented when you get into, as a player, every day what's going on. Covering the NFL, the day after a game, you come in and you see, there's a walkthrough just to get all that acid out of you and kind of see who's able to walk and all of that. So there's a story there. NFL players take Tuesday off. That was the day we had lunch with the coach, did our stories and started gearing up for the next week. Wednesday, you kind of knew, you talked to, the opposing coach on the phone and you found a player you wanted to talk to on the other team and they hooked up a phone call for you. Thursday, did some sort of player feature. Friday, walk through, just a standard story. Saturday, preview. and then Sunday a game. And there was always just a buildup through the whole course of the week to game day. And then at the end of the 7 days, you start off Monday at the very bottom again, you build back up. So it's a merry-go-round, and it's kind of cool because you know what you're doing every day. But after 8 years of covering it every day, you know what you're doing every day. So it gets really mundane, and the season's long. Yeah, it's everyone goes, it's only 16, 17 weeks. You're okay. You could do this. But by the end of the week, you are like just scraping for what am I going to write about now? And if they get to the playoffs, which was
Yeah.
constant, you're like, okay, I've written the story on the long snapper now. I've done the story on everybody on the roster. I don't know who to write about today. So it was just
Yeah.
finding stuff. So
Yeah. Who were some of the more unique athletes that you got to cover, or coaches that you enjoyed covering the most?
I always say, I don't know if you remember Marty Schottenheimer,
Yeah, yeah, coach, yeah.
but yeah, and Marty was maybe he was just a gentleman, and he was such a good guy to talk to on a daily basis. And probably once every 2 or 3 weeks, he would break down and cry in the middle of an interview. And the funny thing is, Brian's coaching the Cowboys right now. And my first
Yeah.
year covering the Chiefs, Brian was a senior at Blue Valley High School in the suburb of Kansas City, and he was a quarterback, and he led his team to a state championship. And I remember asking Marty about Brian playing in the state championship, and Marty broke down and cried, remembering driving through Western Pennsylvania, where he grew up, to his state championship games. And it's just fun stuff. Marty was just a good guy. And I always
Yeah.
wished better for
Yeah, I
him.
saw
He
him.
deserved to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I
Go ahead.
remember him with the Chargers.
He just deserves so much better. He lost heartbreaking playoff games. That's his legacy.
Yeah. No, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, he was a good coach. Coached a lot of good
You still there? You
players. He's
froze
probably
up
one
on
of
me,
the
I
first
think.
ones I remember.
I was gonna say Marty back in the '80s was coach of the Cleveland Browns, and he got nailed 2 years in a row in the AFC Championship game. Once on a fumble at the goal line against the Broncos, and the next week against John Elway, who drove 96 yards in the last minute and a half for a touchdown to lose again. So he just got snake bit. And you said the Chargers. He was beating Tom Brady and the Patriots that year, and they got a game-winning interception, and the guy who intercepted the pass fumbled the ball and gave the Patriots the ball back, and Tom Brady took advantage and drove for a winning touchdown. It was just that's the way he lost playoff games.
Tom Brady got a lot of lucky breaks in playoff games
Yeah, we
throughout
won't
his
talk
career.
about that Tuck rule.
I was about to say there were a lot of moments that they could have went the total opposite way,
Yes.
but that's sports. That's
Yeah,
sports. That's what's so
exactly.
great about it. But no, well, Pat, talk about your book because it talks about the transition of sports media and columns and writing and just how that's changed really very quickly. I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember going and tossing newspapers out on newspaper routes with
You and me
older guys.
both.
I remember reading it and looking forward to these guys who wrote articles every single day. But your book kind of talks about the transition of what's gone on in that space over the last, again, 10 years. But just talk about why your motivation to write it and kind of what it's all about.
So about 8 years ago, there was a mass layoff, not at the paper I was working at, but one of our competitors. And the thing about the newspaper business, it's everybody who's working. So I had 2 or 3 friends who were really good writers, salt to the earth guys and just great reporters. And they lost their jobs in mass layoff. And I was like, man, if that guy could lose his job, I'm not safe either. And I started thinking about it, and I'm like, what would I do if I lost my job? I jotted down some notes because I said, there's got to be a book here because nobody's written about this thing. And so I came up with the idea of the downturn in the newspaper industry through the eyes of a sports columnist who's driving to work on a Friday, expecting to lose his job, expecting to be the next casualty in a mass layoff. And the story takes place over a single day, but it flashes back to his career. It flashes back to his life, really, his boyhood and how he got into this whole thing and the people who helped him along the way and the relationships. it's a book about um, relationships and why they matter, and it's a cautionary tale of striking that balance between home and work life. Because this is a guy who loved what he did, but everything else be damned. He moved away from home, moved away from his family, and all of a sudden he's all alone. He meets a woman, falls in love, but he doesn't really know how to balance what he does for a living, which is chasing stories and doing the things he needs to do as a man and a husband.
Yeah.
And so he finds himself he loses his dad, which is a big one, and then he loses his marriage. And at the end of the day, he kind of bet on a business that really wasn't as loyal to him as he was to it. And he finds himself all alone. So
Yeah.
it's a sad story. He's a good guy, but he's a flawed man, like we
Yeah.
all are.
Yeah.
And it just I think there's something in it for everybody.
Yeah. Well, it's just interesting to I mean, you hear these kind of stories all the time, people being very career focused. There's something different about sports, though.
Huh?
There's something about loving the game and loving the sport and loving watching it and playing it and going to it and covering the people that are involved in
Yes.
it. And just my wife, she jokes with me sometimes. She's like, "I swear if you could marry the Razorbacks, you'd pick them over me." And I'm like, she's like, "You never get this emotional with me."
Yeah, you'd say only on Saturdays.
Yeah. I'm like, "It's different. It's different," you know? But, uh But no, it's interesting, I just feel like, especially as a sports fan myself, your book's something that I will get very, attached to and understand the thoughts probably of what he's going through and thinking
Yeah,
about.
I think you would read it, and his relationship with his dad was just such a unique one, but he didn't appreciate how his dad was a blue collar guy, a vacuum cleaner repairman. He never realized how smart his dad was till his dad wasn't there anymore. All of the things that are left unsaid and all of those things. And he had this regret about not being around for the last years of his dad's life. And then the same thing with his marriage. You're out chasing stories and you have no idea, like, every decision you've ever made when you're a single man, you make these decisions for yourself.
Yeah,
When you're married, every decision you make has to be with someone else in mind.
yeah,
So it's an interesting, just a balance, finding that balance. And I think more people need to do that today. And I think more people are figuring it out, especially after COVID.
yeah. Well, man, so many things have changed after COVID,
Yeah.
in a lot of different spaces that
Yeah.
people are still trying to figure out how to navigate it. Interesting time, but was it hard for you to obviously you wrote about people and real life people and stories and stuff that you saw, on a
Mhm.
day to day. Was it hard for you to write this book and kind of come up with the story, or where was
You
the
know what?
challenge?
It was a very cathartic experience. There were things I was really honest about, and there were some things like the sports stories in there you're going to recognize. You go, I remember hearing about that. You're a youngster, so you probably weren't alive to witness some of the things that I'm writing about. But you'll be like, oh, I've heard of that, and you'll recognize a lot of the names in there. But I think he's harder on the protagonist in the story than he is the other people. It also details there's kind of a parallel story going on as while he's going through his career, this newspaper is making its climb and its rise and it's going through an ownership thing. And then all of a sudden something happens where it doesn't come to fruition and then the newspaper industry starts its downward spiral. So all of a sudden you're watching this um this climb and this arc of this newspaper and this real success story, and then it's starting its decline, and you see this decline happening as his career is kind of where it's leveled off to where he is, and this is where he is. He's established himself now, but it's the industry starting. He's in a very comfortable position in an industry that is built on a house of cards.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kinda leads me to a question because you've lived through this.
Huh?
When writing this book, is it for people for just pure enjoyment, or is there a message to the story that you hope people take away from it?
Yeah, I think not to belabor the point, but finding that, that the importance of people in your lives and telling them you love them every day and appreciating them and making time and realizing that the paper's always gonna come out the next day, whether you're there or not. It's always better when, you know, you wanna be a part of all of the big stories, but sometimes you just gotta take a back seat and be there for your kids', school play or whatever, you've got to look at these things and go, "Alright, the people matter, let them know," and your paycheck is important, but it's not the most important thing in your life. You're gonna find something else if this paycheck falls through.
That's right.
There's
That's
gotta be
right.
more to life than that,
Yeah.
and the
No, I
people are
love
the
that.
ones who matter.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and I think everyone at some point in their life kinda struggles with that, I'm sure. You find something
Yeah,
you
I
love
think
to
men
do.
do in particular. We
Yeah,
American men identify themselves by what they do, not who they are, and, what kind of man they are.
yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
you feel the responsibility to have to
Mhm.
do something, you get good at something, you dive in deeper, and that becomes just your
Yeah,
identity in one way. It's tough to step back and again, find that balance even though you may know that what you're doing is not the right way to go about it, but it's
right.
tough to force yourself to learn that balance, and it
Yes.
did I love talking to the guys who do have that balance and have kind of figured out how to do it. They're motivating to me. I try my best, but sometimes it's tough.
There's a, I always find that the people who are grounded with a sense of faith, a belief system. They just have a aura about them, and they know what's important in life. They know the things that matter most. I'm attracted to those people. I, I gravitate towards them because I just feed off their energy now. It's so interesting that when you're young and you're chasing your dreams and all of that stuff, how you lose focus of the things that matter most.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. What is your opinion on the industry of sports columnists and writers now? Do you see I guess I don't know, you saw people that did it for 20, 30, 40 years and like the
Yeah.
passion behind it. Do you see guys doing that the same way, or do you think things will continue to change in a
But it's a lot different. I mean, I don't know how much, first of all, the method for how we're delivering it now. I mean, we're gonna see everything online soon. It's only a matter of time before print newspaper is go the ways of just goes away. When you're reading a story online right now, you could spot an AI story
just
that
about to say that. The creativity seems lacking in a lot of ways, just from what I see. It's all about push it out faster, 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 but it's not as
yes.
deep and creative and just personal.
Yeah, you don't get that real, that craftiness to it.
Mhm.
There's such a the sports writers I grew up reading, Jim Murray, Scott Ostler, Mitch Albom, those guys, you look at them and there was just such it was a treat to read them because they were gonna entertain you and they were gonna have a great analogy. It was gonna bring you somewhere and you were gonna learn a lesson and you were gonna learn about what you're reading about too, the person you were reading about. And nowadays, you start reading a story, and it takes you about 7 or 8 paragraphs before you even know what it's about because they're trying to keep you into the story now. The goal has
Yep,
changed completely.
yep, and
So
there's an ad in the middle of it, you gotta get
yes,
past.
yes. So it's just changed, and I have a hard time reading the stuff right now. Like we talked about, picking up a paper the next day and reading about a game. I mean, it's just a different way of we used to have 7 reporters out for a Chiefs game, and we would have, 12, 14 stories and a notes package and all of this stuff. The game mattered and everybody wanted to read it. And they read every word you wrote. And now I don't think people have time for it or even are accustomed to that kind of treatment in a story.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just I had Gary Myers
Mhm.
on the one of the first guests that I was able to have on the Books for Guys podcast, and he was talking about covering the Giants and covering the
Uh-huh.
Cowboys and just the stories that he was able to experience a long time ago, and he even says like, "Man, it's changed, like, you don't get." It's gonna be interesting to see if someone covers a team for 25 years. It just that people bounce around, it's the next thing here, it's a media thing here, and you're just I don't know, just I hate it as a sports fan because you just love that personal touch, and you like guys who are they're involved, they're a fan of the team, and
That
it
institutional knowledge of it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the players get to know them, and the coaches get to know them, and they're just in there, so you trust what they say and the stories they have, you're just so interested, and you hang on every word that they are talking about, and it just I don't know, you're just not getting that as much right now, and it's just kind of, I don't know,
That's
surface level, which just isn't as interesting.
that's the really interesting thing about, we talked about relationships and the importance of relationships. The relationships you develop with players over the years and that trust, they might not like what you write all the time, but I always gave them a chance to tell me why they didn't like it, but they always trusted that you treated them fairly, and that's where trust is born. And that's how you do the job is just seeing these guys and kind of just developing a relationship with them where you don't have a notebook out every time you talk to them. Yeah, you just see them and yeah, it's not like you're taking from them all times. Ask them how they're doing and training camp was always a good way of meeting guys like that.
Yeah. I mean, even
Yeah.
guys like Paul Feinbaum and just
Yeah.
other guys talking about having a drink with a coach or, just kinda off the record stuff, and you're just like, "Man, those are some of the best stories to hear about," and it
Yeah,
just
no
doesn't.
notebooks allowed. That you just
Yeah,
sitting there and just chatting it up.
yeah, I love that. Well,
Yeah.
Pat, now that you've written this book, do you foresee yourself writing additional books?
Yeah, there's everybody tells me that this character needs a chapter 2 in life because now that
Yeah.
he's lost his job, and I don't wanna be a
Yeah, what's
spoiler
next?
alert here, but, what's his next chapter? What does this guy do? And it's kind of I'm probably a third of the way through that thing right now, and it's kind of interesting because what do you do after you've done your dream job? And it's an interesting dilemma, but it's also like, how do you learn to relax is what it comes down to. How do you learn to not punch the clock every day? And how do you learn to enjoy the people around you and really take advantage of them? And that's kind of going to be the message of this next one
Yeah.
is,
That's a
serving others.
yeah, no, a big life pivot,
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
say.
I always said the next job that I used to tease people was the next job I was gonna have, I wanted to be like Forrest Gump and ride the, tractor and mow the field on the lawn. Now they have these AstroTurf fields, and they don't even need that guy anymore.
I know, I
So I
know.
wanted to be the guy who drags the infield and chalks the field and do all that stuff. They have AstroTurf baseball fields, they don't even chalk.
I know, I know. Hey, it's
So
like it's like the writing industry, they've automated the maintenance on the field now. You
I
can't even
know,
go be on the field to
I
enjoy
know,
it.
so what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, even the chain gang, now they're digitalizing the first down marker. I'm like,
Yeah,
"Man, I want the chains. I want the mess
exactly.
up."
Exactly. I saw this great 60 Minutes piece on a guy named Dave Kindred, who was a sporting news columnist for a lot of years. And he retired to his hometown in Illinois, and he would go out and watch the girls basketball team play there. I was like, "All right, that's cool." And the newspaper didn't cover the game the next day. So he asked the coach, he goes, "How come they don't cover the game?" And he goes, We're down to one person on the newspaper staff and they don't have time to do this." And he said, "Well, how about if I write the stories for you?" And I don't think the girls knew exactly who he was. And the coach said, "Well, I can't afford to pay you." And he goes, "Well, it's going to cost you because I don't work for free, but it's going to cost you a Baby Ruth bar every game." And so he would go and he'd write these stories about these girls. And this is a national columnist of the year who suddenly is writing about a girls' high school basketball team, and he is writing like this first class stuff about this girls'
Yeah,
team that is mediocre at best, and they don't realize what a treat they are being given at this
yeah.
point.
That's
So,
incredible. I love that. I love
yeah,
that.
yeah, and I was like, That would be a pretty cool, retirement job right there."
Yeah, yeah. Just go and
Yeah.
ride and enjoy it and do it on your own time and make a
Writing it
difference.
for just the love, for somebody
Yeah.
else. Yep.
Man, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Pat, one more question for you, because I ask everybody this that comes on. Man, what's if someone asks you for a good book recommendation, what's one of the ones that you like to recommend to others?
So my favorite sports book of all time is The Boys of Summer by Roger Kahn.
Okay.
It's about the Roger Kahn grew up in New York City and got to cover the Jackie Robinson Brooklyn Dodgers and just what that entailed. You know, growing up in New York City, his climb to become a sports writer, very cool story. And then what it was like covering this team that broke the color barrier in sports. And it's just a beautiful story. It's my favorite sports book. My favorite book is Bonfire of the Vanities by Thomas Wolfe. And I'm rereading it right now, as a matter of fact, because it was written in the '80s and it's still so relevant today.
Yeah.
I like to just find cool, uh, just interesting reads, things that people just throw out at me. I just think reading a book is a cool way of doing, although it's hard during football season. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I get my reading done usually, in the wintertime and spring, a little bit in the
You and me
summer.
both, right? Right as soon as Super Bowl ends, and like, I can't get into the basketball season anymore, and
Yeah,
and that's when I just take my time for reading.
yeah. I knock out, like, 2/3 of my yearly reading goal, it seems like,
You
in
and
the
me
late
both.
winter and early spring.
You and I are kindred spirits, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, and then just I mean, man, I could knock out some sports biographies or just
Yep.
sports
Who you
stories.
like? What do you like?
So, one of my favorite books is not it's not a football book, it's, the Tiger Woods book that came out
I
about
just wrote the Armin Katayan one.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. I
Yeah.
just as an athlete, learning
Huh?
more about just the way that he thinks and the way he grew up and just his dad and mom, the
He
dynamics
is
of
a
it all.
That's a weird story, isn't it?
It is, and it explains a lot because then I read
Yes.
Phil Mickelson's book,
Uh-huh.
complete opposite dude. So, it's so cool that I don't know, follow their rivalry throughout their careers, but just how polar opposites they are
Yeah.
to each other.
I read the Tiger one and I was just like, wow.
Yeah,
I loved watching him golf, and I think all of us did,
yeah,
but it's just I was like, "God, he is a messed up individual."
yeah.
It's amazing that he was able to accomplish what he accomplished.
Yeah. Yeah, just yeah, again, just learning how he grew up and then
Mhm.
why he was doing some of the things he was doing. I was just
Yeah.
like, "Man, this goes deep."
Huh?
Anyone who and I like to golf, so all my golf
Uh-huh.
buddies, I was like, "Guys, I know you guys aren't readers, but you gotta read this book, like, you'll love it." So, that
I know
one
you're not readers. Is that a compliment or is that a, slam?
no, it's my buddies that they're getting more and again, this was kind of the purpose of Books for Guys is,
Yeah.
I didn't start really enjoying reading
Huh?
on myself until after college, and then once and it was sports biographies that got me interested. There's books I wanted to read, but then
Huh?
that translated into reading more and more and more, and my friends are now reading more and more because 'cause they've seen me, enjoy books, and so I'm like, "Let
Do
me
they
get you a
watch this
sports one, and you'll
do they
you'll
watch
start
this
there and
podcast?
enjoy it." Do what?
Do they watch this podcast?
They do. Oh, yeah, now they're all in. They love it.
Alright. Imma give 'em a message. "Guys, dogs chase cars. You need to read it, okay?"
Yeah. And it's already and it's on the Books for Guys website already, so they're gonna
And
be hearing it. They're gonna get it, so
yeah, I think they'd like it. I think there's a message for them. But, I don't like autobiographies, but I like biographies. Autobiographies, you get to be the narrator of your own lesson, your own
you
story,
can
and
skew it a little bit.
yes, exactly. My favorite is Charles Barkley once said he got, misquoted in his autobiography.
That's a Charles Barkley quote.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
I
like,
love
"Come on,
that.
Chuck."
Yeah. The other book I was gonna say I really enjoyed was The Junction Boys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Man, that I watched the ESPN film when I was
Huh?
younger, and then I got the book when it came out, and that's one of my favorite football books to read, like, in
And that was
audio.
that was Bear Bryant at A&M, right?
Yep, correct, yep.
Okay.
So usually in August, every 3 or 4 years, I'll read that just to get into the mode and
Yeah.
bring back memories. But
Yeah.
the Junction Boys is a great book. It's written really well.
I'll
I
have
can't
to
remember
check
the
that one out.
author.
I remember the ESPN, thing,
Film.
but I don't remember I have never read the book, so I'll have to put that on my list.
Yeah, I've got it on Books4Guys. I can't remember the author off the top of my head, but I've read the book twice and I've recommended it multiple times.
Have you read Friday Night Lights?
But yeah. Oh yeah.
That's a
Great.
really good I really wish the movie had followed the book far more, 'cause that book is sad in so many ways.
Yeah. It, as a former I was in it. I was in it when I was reading the book. It draws you in and you can it just grabs you in a way, especially if you played high school sports in a town,
Yeah.
smaller town, you kinda like, the dynamics and that's another book I read every few years just because it's so good.
Yeah, it's so well done. And I think, that's a great case of, for what sports journalism used to be, because this is a guy who took a year off the New York Times and went and embedded himself in a community and got to know these people, before he started trying to write a book about something he didn't know a lot about. He got to know these people. Now he pissed them all off when he wrote the book, when they came out and said, "Wow, not only are we racist, but we're a whole lot of other things too."
Didn't
But,
hold back.
yeah, exactly. But, that book is such a good piece of journalism.
Yeah. I love yeah, great book, great book. I've recommended that several times as well.
Yeah.
No, Pat, we're gonna have to do this again. We're gonna have to do another conversation, especially
Dude,
when you get
whenever
your
you
next
want.
book.
I
Yeah, because we can talk sports all day long, and I know a lot of the people that follow this podcast and recommendation. It's easy for me to recommend your book because I just know how many people are gonna find
well,
just
I
enjoyment in it.
I told you when I got the note from Mickey saying, "Does anybody wanna do this?" And I'm like, "Oh, what's the name of this?" And I'm like, "Books for Guys." And I'm like, "Oh, this is me. This is me
Easy.
right here." I go and
Layup.
I said, "This is a layup. Yeah, this is a slam dunk." I go, "Mickey, if you don't choose me for this one," and he goes, "Alright, I'll get you in there." So,
Yeah.
anytime you ever want me, I'll give you my cell number too.
Cool, cool, yeah, and
Yeah.
I'll get when we get off here, but Pat, man, thank you so much, and,
Did you get
again,
everything you
I know a
needed?
lot of my friends are gonna love this conversation, and they're gonna start following what you've done, and I can't wait to have those conversations with them, to talk more about you, so
Awesome. You get everything you need? Any other final questions, anything?
no, that's it, Patrick, I appreciate it.
Man, enjoyed this so much. This is you made my day.
Good deal, we appreciate it, Pat.
Alright.